All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like people are starting to filter in. My name is Karrie Potter, and I am an educational support coach with Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center. And so I wanted to cover a little bit about what a parent center is. There are nearly 100 parent centers and community parent resource centers um, in the United States and territories. In Illinois, we have two. They're federally funded, and there's at least one in every state. In Illinois, we have two. So Family Matters covers 94 Illinois counties outside of the Chicago region, and then FRCD, or Family Resource Center on Disabilities, covers the remaining counties in that Chicago region. So we serve families of infants, toddlers, and children and youth with disabilities. We serve the age range from birth through 26. So some helpful information to know. We help parents participate effectively in their children's educational development. We also help students as self-advocates to navigate the special education process, understand their rights, things like that. We partner with professionals and different people to help improve outcomes for all children with disabilities. So today, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Actually, it's a 30-minute message today, so we're short on time with that, but there will be information. You can contact us outside of today's webinar with questions. So we are not able to offer CEUs for training, but certificates of attendance can be requested by contacting me or contacting Family Matters via email. I do have to say we are not a legal services agency, and we cannot provide any legal advice or legal representation. So any information you gain from today's webinar should not be intended or considered as any form of legal advice, and it should not be used as a substitution for legal advice. We also the contents of this PowerPoint and presentation were developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. So I want to welcome you and thank you for taking time out of your day for today's presentation. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available on the Family Matters website following this presentation. If not today, it'll be this week. Please, again, we won't take questions today since this is a 30-minute message, but you can reach out to myself or contact us through our website if you do have questions after today's presentation. We will email out a copy of note slides and resources that pertain to today's topic, and those will go out after today's presentation. So I wanted to talk about what we offer, what is Family Matters PTI, what kind of services we offer. We do have an educational advocacy helpline that anybody in our 94 counties can reach out to. If somebody outside of our area is looking for services from their parent center, we would direct them to their parent center so that they can get resources and connection to their parent center that serves their area. We offer educational support or educational surrogate parent program. If you want to learn more about that and becoming an educational surrogate parent, you can find information on our website, or you can contact us and ask us for more in-depth information. We also offer a COMPASS program. It was formerly our VAP, or Volunteer Advocacy Project or program. The name has changed. That will be if there's not information out already, there will be information out shortly on registering for that. So you can be looking for that training as well. We offer an annual DAISY, or data educational program. The curriculum, our staff have been trained on a curriculum that DAISY created. So you can look for that usually kind of in the summer. And we also have special education advocacy trainings. We have self-advocate blogs and vlogs. We put out a quarterly newsletter and a transition blast that focuses on transition services and transition age students or self-advocate stories are highlighted in that every quarter. And we also offer a monthly podcast. We have I am one of 2 educational support coaches here at Family Matters that provide individual assistance to caregivers, self-advocates, and professionals. And then I want to jump in for time's sake into today's presentation. So today we're going to talk about student success and effective strategies for IEP progress monitoring. And by the end of the session, we want you to be well prepared to take what you've learned today and apply it to maximize the success of your students or your child. So there are some learning objectives. By the end of this presentation, we hope as an attendee that you will understand key strategies for progress or monitoring and documenting IEP progress effectively. We want you to walk away having learned how to collaborate with all IEP team members to ensure consistent progress tracking and to be able to identify data collection tools and methods for assessing student project or progress. So we hope that you walk away with this knowledge after today's presentation. So I think it's important to start with what is IEP progress monitoring. IEP progress monitoring is an ongoing process of collecting and analyzing data to determine whether a student is making progress toward their IEP goals. So every student that has an IEP has goals written in, you identify areas of need. There are goals written to address those areas of need to discuss, how we're going to help that student progress from where they are to where they need to be and help close that gap. So you have to measure progress to determine if that goal is effective and the services and supports are effective. So this helps educators and parents make informed decisions to improve instruction and support the student more effectively. So consistent monitoring ensures accountability and provides insights into a student's strengths and needs. So, progress monitoring is a very important part of the IEP progress, because without that progress monitoring, you don't know whether something's really working or not for that student and helping them make that progress. So we talked about what progress monitoring is. We want to talk about why it's important. So effective progress monitoring, it keeps everyone accountable and allows for timely adjustments. For educators, it's like a roadmap to gauge whether interventions are working or need to be revised. So, if you're moving along and you see, hey, this student's making a lot of progress, they're on track, we wanted them to make this much progress by this date, they're doing that, great. What you have in place is working, you've got the progress monitoring, to back you up in that. But if you're doing progress monitoring and see that gap is getting bigger or just staying the same, then you may think, we need to meet as a team and look at revising that goal or services that are put in place to help that student make the most progress. So progress monitoring is important because it also allows for transparent communication between schools and families. It ensures that everyone is aligned on the student's growth. So if you're all working toward the same goal and all communicating and working together, it really helps make that a smooth progress or process, and it's helpful for parents and all parties involved in the IEP team, all team members, professionals, parents, to understand that progress monitoring and have access to that information. So there are key components of progress monitoring. Progress monitoring relies on baseline data. So baseline data establishes where the student is starting. So it might be their present level, where they're starting, what can they do. If you're looking at a baseline in math, what is that student able and capable of doing right now? What are their areas of need? What can they do independently? What skills have they mastered? But you want that baseline data. You need a starting point so that you can, look at creating a goal. You also have to look at measurable goals. That's another key component. These need to be clear and specific. So you want goals you have to start with that baseline. Then you create a goal to state how far that student will come, what kind of progress you want them to make in that year's time with the IEP. And so that measurable goal, again, it needs to be clear and specific. And then the third key component is regular data collection to track growth towards these goals. So you want that data to be collected as a team. You can discuss how often are we going to collect data on this goal to see how the student is making progress. If they're making progress, great. If not, frequent and consistent data collection is going to help you look at calling a meeting or having a discussion about revising a goal or something in the IEP. So we talked about like setting clear, measurable goals. To effectively monitor progress, the IEP goals need to be SMART goals. So SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, they are achievable, they're relevant, and they're time-bound. So for instance, instead of saying a student will improve reading, a SMART goal would be that the student will increase reading comprehension by 1 grade level within 9 months. So, if the student's at a 4th grade reading level, we're saying in 9 months they would increase to a 5th grade reading level. But you want that, if it just says improve reading, it doesn't give you a specific goal. They could make minimal progress and that still maybe qualify as meeting that goal. So there are a lot of different tools that can help with collecting progress data. There are several tools you can use. So to monitor IEP progress, the observations are one. Sometimes staff go in and will do an observation of a student, maybe to collect behavioral data, things like that. There are behavioral checklists, standardized assessments, and there can even be apps and software that can simplify the tracking progress. There are all kinds of apps and technology out there, in today's world. There are all kinds of different technological things that can be used to help you with progress monitoring. The key is to really use methods that suit the individual needs of the student and that are reliable. You want your data collecting system or the tools you use to be reliable, and helpful in that process to help collect the, most accurate data possible. Because again, you're using that data to determine if what is in place is working. So there are different techniques on collecting data. Different collection for data, different methods provide different insights. So frequency counts are useful for behaviors that occur frequently. So if behaviors are occurring frequently, staff may want to collect counts on how frequent those behaviors are happening. How many times a day, how many times an hour, things like that, how many times during a certain class period. So you could look at frequency counts. While work examples or samples of work can show improvements in academic tasks. So if you're looking at a goal on handwriting and you're looking at assignments or work samples, you can see how the handwriting has improved or not improved. So, that's another form of data collection. Progress graphs are another great way to visualize a student's growth over time. So you could graph out how much progress a student is making if you're assessing them or looking at test scores, things like that. If they're taking test quizzes or struggling with those, you've implemented supports, you could kind of make a graph of what their grades are on those tests or whatever it is that you want to graph out to show have they consistently improved or not. We've talked a little bit about collaboration, but collaborative progress monitoring is important. Effective progress monitoring does require collaboration among all members of the IEP team. That's including teachers, support staff, parents, everybody who is part of that meeting. You want to keep an open mind, an open line of communication, schedule regular check-ins, and ensure everyone is informed and can contribute effectively to the student's progress. So, really look at, I think, communication is key for this part to be collaborative. So, professionals can talk to families, families can talk to professionals about what is the best mode of communication. You may not have to have a sit-down meeting every time you want to check in and ensure a student is making progress, but it could come down to having the discussion of how often am I as a parent going to receive data sent home or progress monitoring. Progress reports are typically sent out quarterly. Am I going to get something else in between? Or what is the best method to provide an update? Would that be email or scheduling a phone call or an in-person meeting? But figuring out what each other's modes of communication, times of day, response time is, things like that can be helpful in that collaborative process. Can also use data to make decisions. So once data is collected, it's important to use it to make those decisions that we've talked about. If progress is slower than expected, then maybe you have to look at instruction needing to be adjusted, or additional supports might be necessary. Then remember the IEP, it's a living document, so it can and should be adapted to meet the students' evolving needs. So if something's not working, you can revise that IEP. Again, it's important that families are involved, and even students. Families and students are members of the IEP team. Sometimes you don't see students in their meetings until they're, the age of 14 and a half. They can participate younger. But you want to provide those regular progress reports or updates to families. Parents and caregivers are an essential part of the IEP process. And so having those regular updates or families receiving those on the student's progress can be helpful for them. It may trigger, if they're getting those consistent progress reports sent home, when they're looking at those, it may trigger some questions in their mind like, hey, it looks to me that my child is struggling, or they're not making the progress I thought they would by this point. Can we sit down and talk about this? It may trigger that family to ask for a meeting, things like that. It keeps the parents informed when they get those regular updates, but it can also empower families to support their child at home as well in the learning process. And I think it's always helpful, when you are working on a goal, when the families are involved and have, clear understanding of goals and are part of that IEP development process, they can work on those goals at home as well, some of them, and it's helpful when things are worked on across the board, and sometimes that can help with progress. So there can be challenges in any kind of process, and in progress monitoring, but there can also be solutions. So one challenge is the time commitment required for regular data collection. So to address this, you can consider using tools that simplify the process or create a schedule that ensures consistency. Another challenge is inconsistent data. So you want to be sure that everyone involved is in the data collection process is well trained and following the same procedures. Because if everybody's not following the same procedures for collecting data, things like that, that data could be skewed. So I wanted to talk about some real life examples of effective progress monitoring. And so we're going to look at a couple case studies. And the first one, example one, says that implementing technology for an IEP goal assessment, a student in Illinois with reading comprehension challenges had an IEP goal to improve reading skills by 1 grade level in a year. The teacher used an app to monitor weekly progress, tracking reading fluency and comprehension levels. By analyzing the data, the teacher was able to adjust the instruction and provide additional support when progress plateaued. This technology-based approach allowed for consistent monitoring and timely interventions, which resulted in the student achieving their IEP goal. So you can see that progress monitoring was really helpful because the teacher saw a plateau in the progress and then was able to make adjustments in interventions and instruction and things like that. And then the student started progressing again and achieved their IEP goal. So effective progress monitoring is very helpful in these situations. The second example is on utilizing standardized assessments for progress monitoring. So in this example, another student who struggled with math problem solving had an IEP goal to improve math performance by focusing on foundational skills. The teacher used biweekly standardized math assessments to gather data on the student's progress. And then based on the assessment results, targeted interventions were put in place, such as one-on-one tutoring sessions. And then this consistent progress monitoring helped identify specific areas of difficulty and allowed the teacher to tailor support, um, leading to significant improvement in the student's math skills over the school year. So again, you're collecting that data, and as a teacher, it helped the teacher to identify what other supports could be put in place, have more targeted interventions like one-on-one tutoring, and then that student did make that significant progress and improvement over time. So just some final thoughts. We're getting close to the end of our time, but just final thoughts are, we want to review those 3 learning outcomes we discussed. We want you to be able to walk away today and understand key strategies for monitoring and documenting IEP progress effectively. Again, I know this is a lot of information in 30 minutes, and you can't fit in as much in a 30-minute message as an hour-long webinar, things like that. But we want you to be able to understand those key strategies for monitoring and documenting IEP progress effectively. We also hope you walk away today having learned how to collaborate with all IEP team members and to ensure consistent progress tracking. And then also to be able to identify data collection tools and methods for assessing student progress. Again, we will have some resources that we will send out to you after today's presentation. Again, this has been recorded and will be archived on our website. You will receive a survey. Please complete that. Your honest feedback is very helpful to our grant, helps us know how to improve upon our services and our trainings and such. And so we discussed the different parent centers in Illinois. If you are in the FRCD or Family Resource Center and Disabilities region, their contact information is on the screen. Family Resource Center on Disabilities covers McHenry, Lake, Kane, DuPage, Cook, Kendall, Grundy, and Will counties. Again, their contact information is here. Their website is frcd.org. If you want to reach out to me after today's presentation with specific questions, feel free to do so. My email address is listed down here at the bottom of the screen, so feel free to copy that down, and you are more than welcome to email me specific questions. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, so I appreciate your time today. If you need anything, again, don't hesitate to reach out. We hope that today's information was helpful, and just keep checking our website for future presentations. Thank you.